Welcome, dear souls, to a moment of quiet contemplation, a sacred space where the noise of the world is intentionally diminished, so that the whisper of your own spirit may become clear. Settle into the present moment now, releasing the grip of yesterday's shadows and tomorrow's anxieties, and allow the body to become a gentle doorway into awareness. Find a comfortable position, let your shoulders fall away from your ears, and gently close your eyes or soften your gaze to the calm imagery before you. This journey is not about rushing to a destination. It is about recognizing the profound significance of where you are standing right now. You who have found this path, you are both the observer and the observed, carrying a light that is not a casual flicker but an anchor of pure, resilient energy in a world often defined by chaos. Pause. Inhale slowly, drawing peace into your core. Exhale, releasing any tension you may still hold. Understand that what we explore today is less about drama and more about the delicate architecture of your spiritual reality. A reality where nothing truly goes unnoticed, where every subtle shift in consciousness creates a ripple across unseen dimensions. The phrase "all eyes are on you" may awaken anxiety because we are conditioned to associate observation with scrutiny, performance, and the critical gaze of society. Yet, for the chosen one, for the one who walks the anointed path, this surveillance is not punitive. It is perceptual. In the subtle field of spirit, every soul emits a frequency, a unique vibrational fingerprint that reveals who they are, where they're going, and what they're attracting. Most frequencies dissolve into the ambient noise of daily life, the rush, the worry, the superficial pursuits, the background hum of unexamined thought. But your frequency is distinct, resonating like a tuning fork that draws attention from both the highest and lowest planes, not because of what you do, but because of what you are. Intrinsic spiritual capital accumulated across lifetimes, now manifesting as unmistakable luminescence. And here is the central mystery. The one who is watching most closely will shock you with its intimacy. Your own higher self, the pure, unconditioned witness of your soul, recording every choice, every intention, every thought, not with judgment, but with unwavering expectation and unconditional love. You are being watched by the God within, and now we move slowly into the 7 pillars of spiritual observation. Point 1, the law of energetic mirroring. The law of energetic mirroring is perhaps the most fundamental principle governing the life of the chosen one. It is the metaphysical fact that your inner state is perpetually reflected, amplified, and made manifest in your outer circumstances. The one watching, your higher self, observes the subtle fluctuations of your heart's vibration, not the superficial actions of your hands. The conventional understanding of cause and effect is too simplistic for the anointed path. Here, the cause is vibration, and the effect is manifestation. Your higher self acts as a perfect barometer, measuring the purity and consistency of your inner resonance. When we speak of eyes on you, we are speaking of an internal measurement system. The universe is constantly asking, "What frequency are you holding right now?" And it responds accordingly. If your dominant frequency is fear, the mirror reflects chaotic events designed to reinforce the perception of scarcity and danger. If your dominant frequency is profound peace, despite external pressures, the mirror reflects solutions, alignments, and resources that match the quality of that peace. Factual insight. When your spirit chooses authentic peace over manufactured drama, the world outside begins to shed its unnecessary complexity. This is the eye of the universe responding to the sincerity of your soul's intention. The crucial insight for the chosen one is that peace is not the reward for alignment. It is the prerequisite for alignment. The moment you decide to surrender the need to control every outcome, the mirror begins to clear. Your higher self, the continuous observer, records this alignment, this conscious choice of inner peace, and immediately begins routing opportunities that match your elevated state. This is why periods of intense inner work often precede dramatic, unexpected external blessings. The internal observer registered the vibrational shift first, and the external mirror followed suit. The discipline here is the constant, gentle monitoring of your reaction to life, not the life itself. Are you meeting irritation with equal irritation? Then the mirror will show you more frustrating people. Are you meeting irritation with intentional, compassionate detachment? Then the mirror will show you more harmonious environments. The expansion of this point requires understanding the concept of vibrational sovereignty. The chosen one is being observed to see if they will cede their inner power to external circumstances. Will a slow driver on the road steal your peace? If it does, you have temporarily handed over your sovereignty. Will an unexpected bill cause you to spiral into a fear of lack? If it does, you have momentarily dimmed your light. The higher self observes these concessions not to judge, but to recalibrate the energetic mirror. The more consistently you hold a vibration of certainty, trust, and calm, the less susceptible your outer world becomes to chaos. This is the true meaning of spiritual authority, the absolute power to choose your internal state, regardless of external stimulus. The universe, acting as the perfect mirror, then has no choice but to reflect the authority you project. It is a slow, steady process of maintaining a frequency until the physical manifestation catches up. This is the observation of your energetic integrity. Point 2, the unseen audience of ancestral lineage. The concept of the eyes on you extends far beyond your individual life and reaches into the deep, living tapestry of time and blood that forms your spiritual heritage. You're being watched by a council of ancestors, not as distant ghosts trapped in a forgotten past, but as active, energetic continuities of your own consciousness, existing within a timeless, non-local field. Their observation is not judgmental or demanding. It is rooted in profound investment, patience, and hope. They witness your life as the culmination point of countless unfinished journeys, knowing that when the chosen one rises, the entire lineage is lifted with them. What you heal does not stop at your own boundaries. The breakthroughs you achieve today echo backward through time, retroactively repairing generational patterns that once seemed permanent. They observe your growth not as something separate from themselves, but as the fulfillment of paths they were unable to complete. Your success is not an individual triumph, it is collective liberation. This is why there exists around you a subtle but undeniable spiritual momentum, an unearned strength that arrives when you are least expecting it. To be a chosen one means you have volunteered, consciously or unconsciously, to become the point of greatest integration within your bloodline. The unresolved pain, the unspoken grief, the suppressed creativity, and the repeating cycles of struggle have all converged through you, seeking resolution at last. Your ancestors recognize that the challenges you face are not random hardships, but final examinations in a long spiritual curriculum they once studied themselves. This is why, when you make a decisive, life-altering shift, breaking an addiction, choosing peace over chaos, cultivating gratitude where bitterness once lived, or walking away from a toxic pattern, you feel a wave of relief that seems far too vast for one person to contain. That wave is not imagined. It is the collective exhale of your lineage, released through your courage. They watch closely as you hold light in situations where they may have dimmed themselves, and they are especially attentive to your refusal to repeat what once felt inevitable. When an old pattern attempts to reclaim its place, whether it is poverty consciousness, self-sabotage, emotional suppression, or inherited despair, and you respond differently, your ancestors witness the fracture of an energetic chain that may have bound generations. This observation explains the quiet spiritual support you sometimes feel, the sudden steadiness in your spine, the intuitive knowing that arrives without logic, and the perfectly timed intervention that alters your course. This is not coincidence, nor is it random fortune. It is the accumulated energetic thrust of your lineage moving through you, acting as a spiritual tailwind. The more faithfully you step into your anointed path, the more dormant ancestral gifts awaken within you, and the more focused their attention becomes. They are not concerned with the outward drama of your life, nor the surface chaos of your circumstances. They are watching the integrity of your connection to your roots, the sincerity of your self-recognition, and the moments when you choose self-acceptance over self-denial. Every time you honor your own spiritual worth, you redeem countless moments when they could not honor theirs. Their presence is silent, but their energy is unmistakable, steady, patient, and enduring. They are your unseen audience, your generational support system, and your living inheritance, waiting not in urgency, but in certainty, knowing that through you, the work they began is finally being completed. Point 3, the test of low-frequency engagement. The path of the anointed is not a life lived entirely on a mountaintop. It is a life lived in the valley, but with the conscious knowledge of the mountain's peak always present within you. You walk through ordinary days carrying extraordinary awareness. You are not exempt from traffic, from difficult people, or from misunderstandings, delays, or emotional friction. You are immersed in the same world as everyone else, yet you move through it with a different internal posture. This is where spiritual identity stops being an idea and becomes a lived discipline. The observation of your life includes every encounter with low vibrational energy, gossip disguised as concern, envy masked as humor, petty conflict framed as honesty, and the subtle temptation to harden into cynicism or emotional withdrawal. This is where spiritual theory meets practical, messy reality, where wisdom is tested not in silence, but in friction. The spiritual observers, your higher self, your guides, the unseen intelligence that tracks growth, are not primarily interested in how you handle a spectacular miracle or a dramatic turning point. They are interested in how you handle Monday morning traffic, the tone of an email that feels dismissive, the impulse to prove yourself right, or the urge to defend your character when you feel misread. Factual insight confirms this truth. Your path is rarely tested by monumental challenges alone, but by the smallest, most tempting detours into negativity. These moments appear insignificant, yet they reveal everything. The one watching is noting your capacity to pause, to inhale, to create a moment of awareness, and to deliberately choose non-reaction over instinctive defense. This mastery of silence is not weakness. It is a profound spiritual marker of maturity. Low-frequency engagement operates like gravity. It requires no effort. It is simply the path of least resistance. Anyone can react, argue, complain, or lash out. The chosen one, however, is constantly bombarded with invitations to re-enter the lower self. A spiteful remark on social media, a friend spiraling into complaint, a flash of road rage, or a subtle insult meant to provoke. Each of these is a low-level test of spiritual discipline, and none of them are accidental. The observers are not watching the stimulus itself. They are watching the space between the stimulus and your response. That space is sacred ground. It is where free will operates at its highest level. Do you reflexively defend, justify, correct, and sink your energy into the emotional mud of others' unrest? Or do you recognize the frequency for what it is, a distraction from your alignment, and choose to hold your boundary of peace? This observation becomes a measure of your spiritual weight. A light object is easily pushed by the winds of opinion, drama, and external noise. A soul with spiritual weight, anchored in truth and inner stillness, remains unmoved even when surrounded by turbulence. The ability to resist the urge to explain yourself is seen in the spiritual realm as a supreme act of strength. It signals that you know your truth so deeply that you no longer require validation, approval, or participation in defending it. The test of low-frequency engagement is subtle. It is not about avoiding the low frequency entirely, because that is impossible in physical reality. It is about remaining uncontaminated by it. This is discernment in action. You are being watched to see if you will honor your energy. Do you recognize when a conversation has shifted from connection to depletion and exit without guilt? Do you understand that arguing with someone committed to misunderstanding you is not courage, but spiritual waste? The highest form of spiritual practice is not meditation on a cushion removed from life. It is uninterrupted consciousness while standing in the chaos of the world. The observers are noting your emotional equilibrium under pressure, knowing that the greater the light you carry, the more refined and subtle the tests must become. Point 4, the language of synchronicities. For the chosen one, there is no such thing as coincidence, because reality itself does not operate on randomness when consciousness reaches a certain level of alignment. The universe speaks in a language that bypasses linear time, bypasses logic, and bypasses surface-level reasoning. That language is synchronicity. It is the method through which your higher self, operating beyond the limitations of the physical mind, communicates confirmation, correction, and encouragement. These moments are not accidents. They are precisely timed intersections between inner readiness and outer circumstance. What appears ordinary to the uninitiated is, for the chosen one, a direct transmission of meaning. Factual insight confirms this through both spiritual philosophy and depth psychology. Synchronicities arise when inner states and external events align without causal explanation, yet carry undeniable personal significance. They are intentional signals, not random noise. They are the universe's quiet acknowledgement that you are moving in harmony with a larger design. The first layer of observation is subtle but critical. The spiritual realm is not merely sending signs, it is assessing your capacity to perceive them. Are you present enough to notice, or are you rushing through life with a mind saturated by distraction, anxiety, and mental clutter? Synchronicities can occur regardless, but if your awareness is fragmented, their message dissolves before it can be integrated. The unseen observer is watching the quality of your attention. Presence is the prerequisite for guidance. The second layer of observation is your response. A synchronicity is not a reward or an endpoint. It is a directional marker. It confirms alignment, but it still demands movement. When you repeatedly encounter number patterns like 1111 or 333, when unexpected conversations open doors you never planned for, or when clarity arrives precisely in moments of confusion, you are witnessing compressed spiritual information delivered in symbolic form. These experiences are attempts to pierce the illusion of isolation and remind you that your life is being coordinated from a higher vantage point. Pattern recognition is the key here. The chosen one is not defined by seeing signs once, but by noticing the repetition, the rhythm, and the increasing coherence between inner intention and outer reality. Each time you acknowledge a synchronicity without dismissing it, you are signaling readiness. You are effectively telling your higher self that the channel is open, that guidance will not be wasted. In response, the communication intensifies. Synchronicities become clearer, more frequent, and more personally tailored, not because the universe changes, but because your receptivity deepens. There is also a profound psychological function at work. Synchronicity stabilizes faith in a world that often feels chaotic and hostile to meaning. When logic collapses and plans fail, the sudden convergence of events that perfectly support your growth becomes evidence of an intelligent, benevolent order operating beneath appearances. The higher self understands that doubt erodes momentum, so it supplies these moments as reinforcement, not spectacle. Spiritual maturity is revealed in how you respond internally. Do you immediately dissect the experience, demanding proof and control? Or do you allow the quiet sense of affirmation to settle and guide your next step without force? Trusting the invisible map is the final test. When you move forward without needing constant validation, guided by an inner certainty, strengthened through synchronicity, you demonstrate active communion with your divine source. This is the mark of the truly anointed soul. Attentive, responsive, grounded, and unwavering in the knowledge that nothing meaningful in your life is accidental. Point 5, the solitude of spiritual growth. The chosen path often demands periods of profound solitude, and this requirement is neither accidental nor punitive. It is an essential phase of energetic consolidation, where the soul is deliberately withdrawn from external noise, so it can undergo spiritual metallurgy, the slow and exacting refinement of raw experience into the gold of wisdom. In this space, life strips away distraction and forces a reckoning with the inner world, because true spiritual sovereignty is not forged in performance or recognition, but in moments where you are entirely alone and yet feel wholly complete. This is where the higher self observes with precision how you manage your inner dialogue and how you respond when there is no audience to impress, no affirmation to lean on, and no external structure to define your worth. Solitude becomes the proving ground, because in the presence of others it is easy to mirror expectations, adopt roles, and unconsciously borrow identity from the environment. But in isolation, the true self has nowhere to hide. The one watching is not concerned with how productive you appear or how busy you keep yourself, but with the quality of your inner relationship. Whether your solitude becomes a desperate avoidance filled with constant stimulation, screens, noise, and shallow activity, or whether it transforms into a sacred sanctuary where you willingly sit with discomfort, confront unresolved emotions, and listen without fleeing. What is being measured is the internal hierarchy you establish when stripped of external reference points. The chosen one must transition from dependence on validation to internal self-referencing, learning to become their own steady witness, their own counselor, and their own source of reassurance. This shift is not selfishness or emotional withdrawal. It is spiritual maturity, because a soul that requires constant external input to feel real or worthy is energetically porous and cannot contain the intensity of light required for the anointed path. Solitude seals the leaks. It strengthens the container. It teaches the soul how to stand without leaning. Yet this observation extends beyond physical isolation, because true mastery reveals itself in the ability to maintain inner quiet, even while surrounded by others. The higher self is watching to see whether you can mentally retreat from the emotional turbulence of crowds, refuse the pull of collective anxiety, and remain centered amid sensory overload. This internal solitude is the highest expression of sovereignty, the ability to be inwardly still while outwardly present. The psychological challenge here is the ego, which protests loudly when deprived of attention, comparison, and external measurement. The ego thrives on mirrors and applause, but in solitude it weakens, and as it starves, the soul is nourished. This deliberate disengagement from ego reinforcement signals readiness, because a soul that no longer needs to constantly define itself against others can be entrusted with greater responsibility. The higher self recognizes the quiet confidence that emerges when silence becomes a companion rather than a threat, when stillness feels expansive instead of empty. To embrace solitude without fear, to find peace rather than panic in silence, and to emerge more grounded instead of fragmented is evidence of deep internal alignment. It shows that the chosen one has learned to carry themselves, to regulate their own inner world, and to draw strength from within rather than from circumstance. This is the preparation that precedes expansion, because only a soul that has learned to stand alone without collapsing can be trusted to walk forward, carrying greater spiritual weight and receiving greater divine blessing. Point 6, the shield of radical forgiveness. Forgiveness for the chosen one is not a soft or sentimental gesture, nor is it an act of weakness disguised as virtue. It is a radical, disciplined, and high-octane spiritual technology that operates with surgical precision on the level of energy, identity, and sovereignty. It is one of the most powerful shields you can activate, not because it protects you from future harm, but because it instantly neutralizes the lingering grip of the past. When you choose to forgive, especially when the injury was deep, public, undeserved, or life-altering, you are not submitting to injustice. You are openly defying the lower law of retaliation that governs unconscious humanity. This choice is highly visible to the spiritual realm because it signals mastery. Forgiveness is not an emotional gift offered to another person, nor is it an absolution of wrongdoing. It is an immediate withdrawal of your energetic investment from the moment that wounded you. The one watching is not interested in your words, your explanations, or your moral arguments. They are observing the location of your power. When resentment, bitterness, or the desire for revenge is maintained, a portion of your vital life force remains tethered to the offender or the event, forming a parasitic energetic cord that feeds on memory and emotion. In that state, you are no longer fully present because part of you is still living in what happened. You become energetically dependent on the past, sacrificing your present sovereignty and slowing your forward momentum. Forgiveness, understood correctly, is not reconciliation, forgetting, or minimizing harm. It is the internal release of emotional charge. It is the conscious severing of that energetic cord, a decisive reclaiming of power. The spiritual world recognizes this moment as a transfer of authority back to the self, because it demonstrates that you value your peace more than your need to be right, to be validated, or to witness punishment unfold. The depth of this act lies entirely in its sincerity. It is not enough to repeat affirmations or declare forgiveness intellectually. The observers perceive vibration, not language. They discern whether the heart has truly released the story, or whether it still clings to the wound as an identity, a justification, or a source of sympathy. The question being measured is simple and uncompromising. Has the pain been processed, or is it still being used? When you decide that the space once occupied by resentment is now reserved for grace, purpose, clarity, and light, the shift is unmistakable. Psychologically, forgiveness rests on a sobering truth. Non-forgiveness is self-punishment. It keeps you bound to a memory and repeatedly re-exposed to the same emotional state, long after the external threat has passed. The chosen one is tested here because the anointed path has a strict economy of energy. Carrying old grievances is too heavy a load for a soul designed to move forward with speed, precision, and impact. Radical forgiveness is not passive acceptance. It is a declaration that you are moving too quickly for low-frequency energy to keep up with you. It is the ultimate act of self-love because it preserves the clarity of your spiritual channel, ensuring that nothing obstructs your flow of insight, intuition, and purpose. When the one watching witnesses this level of release, they acknowledge that you have mastered one of the most difficult human lessons, the realization that your identity is not defined by what was done to you, but by how you choose to respond now. In that moment, your spiritual light intensifies, not in spite of the trauma, but because you refuse to let it own you, and that decision causes your presence to blaze brighter than any shadow cast by the past. Point 7, the commitment to unending learning. The journey of the chosen one is not a checklist to be completed, nor a destination that can ever be fully reached, but a continuous spiral of growth, refinement, and expansion that unfolds across the entire span of a lifetime. It is not linear, not predictable, and not designed to grant the comfort of final certainty. The soul's mission is one of perpetual becoming, and what is constantly being observed is not how much you know, how far you have come, or how many awakenings you have experienced, but your attitude toward this eternal process itself. Factual insight reveals that the one watching, whether understood as your higher self and divine intelligence, or the organizing intelligence of reality, is most responsive to your willingness to remain a sincere student of life. The moment you decide you know enough, that you have arrived, or that your current understanding is sufficient, growth begins to constrict. In contrast, your openness to learning, adjusting, and humbling yourself before new information sends a powerful signal that you are capable of receiving higher truths and carrying greater responsibility. The greatest danger for the anointed is not ignorance, but spiritual arrogance, the subtle belief that because you have endured trials, accessed insight, or received gifts, you are somehow exempt from further correction or instruction. This is where the ego quietly attempts to reclaim control of the spiritual journey, disguising itself as certainty, rigidity, or moral superiority. What is being observed is not your experiences, but your humility, Are you still curious, or have you begun to defend your beliefs as if they were fragile possessions? Are you revisiting the same ideas, the same doctrines, and the same interpretations, simply because they feel safe, familiar, and affirming? Or are you courageous enough to invite perspectives that unsettle you, challenge you, and expose the limits of your current understanding? The chosen one understands that absolute truth is vast beyond comprehension, too expansive to be held fully by any single human mind, and therefore approaches knowledge with reverence rather than ownership. The commitment to unending learning is ultimately expressed through the courage to be wrong. This requires the strength to dismantle beliefs that once defined you, even when those beliefs carried you through earlier stages of survival or awakening. The spiritual realm recognizes this epistemological flexibility as a mark of advanced readiness, because it demonstrates that you value truth more than comfort, clarity more than identity, and growth more than approval. This same principle governs how failure is interpreted along the path. What is being observed is your response when things do not work, when efforts collapse, or when outcomes contradict expectations. Do you perceive setbacks as final judgments against your worth, or as precise feedback mechanisms tailored to refine your perception, discipline, and alignment? A true anointed one understands that failure is not condemnation, but information, that every mistake is simply another data point in the curriculum of the soul, revealing exactly where attention, humility, or adjustment is required. Psychologically, this commitment preserves openness to flow. Learning keeps the mind supple, adaptive, and responsive to changing conditions, while stagnation hardens perception and creates spiritual inertia. Stagnation is not rest, it is decay. The commitment to learn ensures that you never declare, "I have arrived," but instead embody the posture of the eternal apprentice, attentive, observant, and receptive. You learn not only from teachers and texts, but also from silence, from inconvenience, from children who speak without filters, from those society overlooks, and from the quiet patience of nature itself. When the one watching witnesses this posture, this sustained hunger for refinement, they recognize that the vessel is prepared, not merely to contain its current measure of insight, but to expand continually. This unending curiosity, this willingness to remain teachable, is not a weakness, but the clearest evidence of divine origin, forward momentum, and your readiness to receive the next wave of assignment, responsibility, and blessing along your purposeful path. Dear chosen one, may this deeper understanding settle gently within you, not as a weight to carry, but as a calm that steadies your breath and softens your stride through life. You were never meant to perform spirituality or prove your worth through struggle or display. You are a living, unfolding expression of divine love, held in constant awareness by the most devoted presence that exists, your higher self. The awareness upon you is not critical, impatient, or demanding. It is loving, patient, and profoundly assured. It already recognizes the version of you that is whole, aligned, fulfilled, and at rest. That future is not distant or conditional. It exists as a completed truth awaiting your gentle cooperation. Your role is not to rush toward it, but to walk in quiet harmony with it, allowing your daily choices, thoughts, and inner posture to gradually match what is already known above. There is no urgency here, no competition, and no need to announce your progress to the world. Growth unfolds through consistency, sincerity, and inner coherence, cultivated in silence more than spectacle. Each calm decision, each moment of self-respect, and each return to peace strengthens the bridge between who you are now and who you are becoming. Trust that the truest guidance comes from within, and let your path be softly anointed with peace, steadied by stillness, and carried forward by unwavering inner assurance.